Let's talk about how did COVID start? Because, Cindy, I know you had questions about that.
Yes.
We heard it came from a bat and
Fish market.
Yeah. So,
from the market.
Yeah.
so I guess dead seafood on ice is coughing on people walking by because it's a respiratory virus, and you got to be within 6 feet of the coughing shrimp on the ice that's headless.
Even though
by
the
way.
shrimp can't breathe. No,
Yeah. So supposedly it's only spread for 6 feet.
They really think we as human beings are morons.
In fact, the title of my very first chapter is, let me get this straight, a bat coughed in China and made the whole world sick.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
How many of you fell for that?
yeah.
I didn't fall for it.
no.
Good. I hope the majority of people
At first they said that, you know, it didn't even like come from a lab. I mean, they kept changing the story every time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it went from a bat coughed in China around a lab called Wuhan in a cave in some territory of China to then being spread by a pangolin, which is like this big armadillo-looking, I don't even know, tank-looking creature that I've never seen in my whole life. But just know, for every animal they want to blame COVID on, a person had to be within 6 feet and get coughed on by that animal to get this respiratory virus.
Right.
So how many of you have ever been 6 feet within a pangolin's cough reach, or a bat, or a snake, which they actually published in January 2020 could be the source of COVID, CNN reported, 2 snakes. Or then they actually announced, CDC did last year, that they thought the raccoon dog might be the animal that started COVID.
Is that a real thing?
Yes, you can look it up, but I've never seen one in my whole life, and I don't think anybody else has either.
Okay, the raccoon dog had heard that one. Okay, so
Maybe a zookeeper.
where did it come from?
All right, so what we do know is that in every single country of the world, what was found in every single COVID-positive patient, blood, urine, and feces, this was done in 4 different countries. China, January 2020, France, April of 2020, Italy and Germany in October of 2021. All published in medical peer-reviewed journals online right now. They found that every single person sick with any COVID-19 symptom, anybody with long COVID, had in their blood, urine, and feces a combination of 36 different animal venom proteins in their blood, urine, and feces, making up all their blood clotting issues, loss of taste and smell, ringing in their ears, paralyzation, low oxygen levels. And everyone who has COVID, long COVID right now, there's 20 million in America supposedly. If you're struggling with loss of taste and smell still, if you have ringing in your ears that are driving you crazy, if you have dementia, brain fog, memory issues, if you cannot walk upstairs without stopping and having to catch your breath, if you can't exercise because you're now induced with asthma since having COVID, if you now have schizophrenia, delusions, hallucinations are all now long COVID symptoms. If you now have dental issues you never had before, I summarize these all in the book. These are all published long COVID symptoms. The 36 different man-made, genetically engineered venom proteins called spike proteins of COVID, determined by DNA analysis in 4 different countries now, confirm all of these venoms in combination create all the blood clots, turbo cancers, brain fog, low oxygen levels. When we saw everybody clip a little device to their finger and watch their oxygen levels fall, hypoxia is created by these venom proteins that target nicotine receptors in the body. So anybody who is still struggling with any of these symptoms, you need to know that in January of 2023, some scientist named Mark Lemke decided to do a research study that was published now by our NIH on PubMed.gov. He took people who have had all of their long COVID symptoms for at least 2 years. They had to have tried ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and physical therapy and got no benefit or relief. He took every single one of these patients and asked them to do one thing and one thing only. Will you please just wear a 7 milligram nicotine patch, one new one every day for 6 days, and let's see if it cures you of all your symptoms.
Wow.
And I would like to quote, 100% of all long COVID symptoms were either gone in the first day of wearing a 7 milligram nicotine patch, or at the latest, wearing it on the 6th day.
And why does the nicotine work?
Yeah, this is what the French scientists found out in April of 2020. They actually determined that the spike proteins of COVID had this identical genetic alignment to 2 snake venom's proteins that target nicotine receptors. This is April of 2020.
So are you saying that the snake venom was actually in the original lab?
Oh, where did the snake venom combine with a bat virus called the coronavirus? The only way that would happen is if man combined the 2 in a lab. Okay, so unless a bat and snake are mating to cross their genes,
So that's what makes up the
Then you-
COVID vaccination.
Right, then the COVID-19 vaccines are actually genetic material called DNA plasmids. This may shock the world. There's no mRNA in any of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. The NIH published last year, they didn't put any mRNA in any of the shots. They put DNA plasmids. And for all of you out there with long COVID and vaccine injury, please, you've got to understand this. And if anybody out there is struggling and has not found relief for their symptoms, please get the book and buy a second copy and give it to your healthcare professional who is trying to answer your questions of why you still suffer. Many of those answers are in there, I promise, for all of your problems. You need that information to address that. How does nicotine work? Nicotine, they found that the 7 milligram nicotine patches cures all long COVID. You put it on, the nicotine binds to what are called alpha-7 nicotine receptors, the same receptors that ivermectin bind to, but nicotine is way more powerful. Picture a magnet, has a much higher polarity to stick to nicotine receptors, and when that happens, these venom proteins called spike proteins cannot fit into that nicotine receptor. Something's already occupying it called nicotine, which God designed, put in the tobacco plant, and in eggplants, and in your red tomatoes, and in cauliflower, and in white potatoes. You've all been eating nicotine your whole life in all these plants.
So, but nicotine is not addictive like smoking is. But interestingly enough, smokers did not get COVID like most people did. There was a high percentage that weren't affected. It was because of the nicotine in cigarettes. But we know that they add stuff to the cigarette, and that's what's addictive. Is that right?
That is correct, yeah. Good job. I think you've read that book.
I learned that. I learned that from you, actually. I didn't know that.
You read that book.
But I'm like a little sponge with you doctors. I love learning all this, so.
So when that binds to the nicotine, then does the body just dispel it?
Yeah, so what happens is the nicotine binds to the receptor, and if you have venom proteins, even if you got bit by a cobra, you can actually take tobacco plants, have them either put the tobacco leaves right on their legs, let the body soak in the nicotine, and it will protect their life from dying. They do this all over the world.
My husband was bitten by a rattlesnake when he was a young boy, about 11 or 12, and this old rancher said, by the time he got down the mountain, the old rancher said there's no need to take him 40 miles to the doctor. So he spent the next 12 hours putting tobacco poultice on it, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off, and he fully recovered.
Yep. This is actually the great paradox. Did you know that of all people around the world, the highest numbers of people who died or were hospitalized from COVID, long COVID, or vaccine injury, do you know who that demographic is?
Who?
It's all diabetics. 40% of all people that died in hospitals were diabetic.
Why is that?
Smokers were 1.6% of all deaths of COVID. It's the smallest demographic period.
Oh, my goodness.
So why was diabetes such a big issue? Yeah. All right, so this is massively important. Everybody out there with long COVID vaccine injury, you're going to learn in the book that it has already been shown that inside the bowels of all long COVID patient and the vaccine injured, inside their bodies, particularly diabetics, because they have this inability to regulate blood sugar, sugar feeds these bacteria and yeast or fungi that live in the bowels of the vaccinated and long COVID. Did you know that the DNA plasmids inside the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are designed that when you inject them inside of you, Cindy, it'll float around in your blood, get into your gut, and when it finds E. coli bacteria and yeast in your colon, the DNA plasmids and the bacteria and the yeast draw in the DNA plasmid, and the DNA of the plasmid combines with their DNA, and this technology programs the bacteria and yeast for the rest of its life to spit out the venom proteins in your body called spike proteins. If you want to cure a long COVID patient, you have to do a stool analysis to look for E. coli and yeast. And when you find it, you have to eliminate it. And there's simple ways to do it. Black cumin seed oil will knock it out within just a few days. Some medical doctors would use antibiotics, and they've already proven this. Inside the bowels of all vaccine injured and long COVID patients, they have bacteria and yeast that are replicating a combined 20 different snake venom proteins, a starfish venom protein called the crown of thorns starfish venom. This is confirmed by DNA evidence. Imagine that irony.
The crown of thorns.
The crown of thorns starfish. And then there is 15 different cone snails, venoms, found in all these patients being replicated in the bowels and in the bloodstreams of every long COVID and vaccine injured. As long as you can identify which one of those bugs it is that has been programmed to make these poisons in your body, once you eliminate them, all the production of these poisons disappears, and now your body can safely detox them out through pooping, peeing, sweating, coughing.
Loving what you see? Then be sure to hit like, leave us a comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who you know needs this kind of encouragement.